Welcome to Community Connections, brought to you by Synapsity, featuring conversations, stories, and interviews with Ottawa's leading changemakers. Enjoy this episode. On this episode of Community Connections, we welcomed in Neil Saravanamuttoo, founder of Parkways for People and the Deputy Director of the newly formed City Shapes nonprofit. Welcome into a fresh episode of Community Connections here with Synapsity, and we're so excited to be joined today by Neil Saravanamuttoo, and he is been hard at work the last few years helping changemakers succeed in active transportation and recreation space. He worked at Finance Canada for over 15 years and was also the Chief Economist at the Global Infrastructure Hub. Most recently, Neil has taken on the role of Deputy Director at the newly formed Canadian-wide nonprofit City Shapes, where he works hand in hand with Catherine Mckenney, who has appeared on our podcast before. Neil has been working tirelessly in the community by encouraging active transportation and better use of public space as a co-founder of Parkways for People and his recent opposition to the Lansdowne 2.0, which will leave Lansdowne with many skyscrapers, little to no tax revenue, and yet to be seen profits. So we're going to get into all that, but first I want to welcome you in. Thanks, Neil.
Hey, Nick. Thanks a lot. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. Our first interviewee from out in nature, so that's great. So we're going to
Well, you
chat.
know what, Nick, if I can just say, summers in Canada can be a bit short. We have to take advantage of it every chance we have. So I'm up at our cottage today and just enjoying some Canadian outdoors.
Absolutely. This is the time of year for that. Well, thanks so much for beaming in from the cottage. So we're going to talk about City Shapes, Parkways for People, and Lansdowne 2.0. I know that's a hot topic. But first, I want to hear a little bit more about your history. You've worked as an economist for some time, and you've also been an active change maker in the community. Some may see these roles as opposites, but in actual fact, economists can indeed help create change. I'm wondering how these worlds intersect for you. Were you always interested in social issues, or was that a bit of an evolution?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. And first of all, I want to say thanks for the label of change maker. I consider that the highest honor. Change is really hard and it's really easy to give up. So I'm very honored to be called that. So the idea of social change is something that's been with me for a long time. It's certainly something that my parents put a lot of priority on and certainly instilled in all of us. Now, professionally, as you referenced, I did work as an economist, and it's actually fair to say that economics is really about welfare. It's the welfare of individuals, the welfare of societies, and so it's really not that far from from the social change that so many of us aspire to help move forward. Now, for me, you mentioned I was with the G20's Global Infrastructure Hub and with Finance Canada before that. And that was largely doing international economics, so international public finance, mostly with relating to developing countries. And so in a sense, the big shift for me was not so much about moving from the world of finance to the world of social change, but really about shifting from the international to the local. And, dealing with international economics, it tends to be large, abstract, fiscal concepts. Whereas when you're dealing with the local, it's about as concrete as it can get. So for instance, we're talking about bike lanes, it gets down to not just the city, not just the street, but which side of the street are we going to put the bike lane on? So that's the sort of shift that I've been a part of, and very happy to. It's something that has concerned me for a long time, and something that I've wanted to be able to spend more time on.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're saying that a lot of the change these days is at the local level, right? That's where you can kind of get your hands a little bit dirtier and enjoy, some of the fruits of your labor. And so I'm wondering how your time at Finance Canada and the Global Infrastructure Hub helped inform your current endeavors.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really, really important. And I feel working at Finance Canada, I'm going to talk more about Finance Canada than the Global Infrastructure Hub, just because I think it's a little bit more relevant to the audience for the podcast. But with Finance Canada, and I should say, I spent probably about 20 years there. It was an amazing privilege working with hugely talented people, a real sense of public service. So that's an experience that I'm always grateful for and will always cherish. Working at Finance Canada as an economist, what it really taught me was a couple of things that have been really critical to how I can be successful in my current role. And that is around the way that government finance works, so the way that public sector accounting works is something that very few people understand, but once you understand it, it opens up all sorts of possibilities for innovative financing. So, innovative financing is something that we need to do more of in the change-making space. And so that's a unique skill and a unique advantage that and a unique set of insights that I've got that we don't always see. And related to that, the working in government and in the international sector, it exposed me to a lot of innovative financing structures. So really, coming back to innovative finance, just different ways that we can use a scarce amount of resources and stretch it into something much bigger impact. So those are some of the skills and experiences that I was able to take advantage of from my previous work and bring it into what we're doing now.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's a powerful mix when someone with a mind for numbers can come over to the world
Yeah.
of social change and really help that. We see the green bonds and different things like that kind of
Yeah.
being a powerful tool in the toolkit. So, happy to have you on this side of
Yeah.
the coin. And it's great that you've got that mind for numbers too, right? And
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
important. We can't create change without having a budget for that too.
That's right. You know what? Just on that point, Nick, there's two things that I've noticed. One is at the municipal level, at the local level, there's relatively little attention paid on financial issues, and there's very few people that would consider them municipal finance experts, and that's a real tragedy because municipal finance is so important. If you look at the municipalities across Canada, every year they spend about half of what the federal government spends in total. So we're talking huge amounts of money, like $2 billion a year spent by municipalities. A lot of it doesn't come under the same scrutiny you get at the federal level or the provincial level. And so that's a real problem. And as I referred to earlier, you just don't get the ideas about how we can do things differently and more innovatively coming in the way that you would at higher levels. So it's it's a real I'm really pleased to be able to bring some of that expertise on public finance to the municipal level. I mean, the concepts are largely the same, but there's obviously a number of specificities to municipal finance that one needs to be aware of. But as I say, it's an area where we need more people, and so I'm happy to be part of that solution.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about some of your work with city shapes in a bit. But now I want to talk a little bit about transportation, active transportation. I know it's a hot topic and near and dear to your heart. I biked into my office space today and I was thinking about you going along the Parkway there. Where did your interest in promoting active transportation come from?
Yeah. So I had a bit of an epiphany in my 30s, and that's throughout my 20s I have to say that I was a fairly inactive person. Didn't really see much purpose to it. I didn't have any sort of major health concerns other than a few minor issues, like some challenge, like I just wasn't breathing as sort of easily as I would like. In my 30s, I became much more engaged in physical activity personally, whether it was running, cycling, playing different sports. And I have to say, I have to credit a lot of this to my wife for getting me into this. So it's always great to have these positive influences in your life to help you move into these new areas. And what I quickly realized with physical activity, that I think other people have discovered too, is that physical activity is a wonder drug. If it were invented, if fitness were invented today, it would be heralded as the greatest cure we've ever come up with. And so in a sense, that was my starting point for getting into active transportation, because what became pretty clear is, if we think about the question, how would we get the Canadian population more active, or a little bit more active than they are now, if nothing else from a like a public health perspective? And the answer is not to give everyone a gym membership. The answer that became very clear to me pretty quickly is the built environment that we live in. If we have the opportunity, as you did this morning, to cycle to our place of work, or to get our groceries, or to do whatever other chores we have, or to walk, or even to take public transit, which is, walking to public transit is actually quite an active mode in itself. So if we have a built environment that supports this, people will be naturally fit and active, and society as a whole will benefit from that that effect. The challenge is that we've built our cities in North America so much around the car that for a number of people, the car is required to basically get anywhere, and so that has a real impact on population health. Now, so this is what essentially got me into the importance of active transportation. We need to provide people, both in the city core as well as in the suburbs, with the opportunity to use bicycles and even walking or public transportation to do a lot of the errands around the neighborhood that account for the bulk of trips that are taken. So most trips that are taken outside of the house are less than 5 kilometers. We drive to the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. And if the conditions are safe, all of that could be done by bicycle. The challenge is, people for so many people, they just don't have the safe alternatives to be able to jump on a bike to do their grocery shopping. So that's that's how I've really become if you like, an evangelist for active transportation. And something that I'm going to be continuing to work on for many years to come, I hope.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I love Ottawa, right? So many bike paths, and then obviously the cross-country skiing in the winter, unless you're on one of those fat tire bikes, and then maybe you're cruising around on the snow. I usually put my bike away for a few months there, but absolutely about fitness, right? The more and more studies are just coming out about, the more you move your muscles, there's, something that secretes out of your muscles when they tense up that it's like an antidepressant, and you're just so happy. So yeah, absolutely echo you that.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of evolved into your project that you helped found, which was Parkways for People. It's a coalition of organizations and people working for transformative change to national capital parkways. And you engage constructively with the NCC and other public entities to move forward on a pro-people parkways agenda faster and further. So tell us a little bit more about this project.
Yeah, sure, Nick. I'd be delighted to. So Parkways for People is all about helping move forward transformative change to the NCC parkways. And I should say also adjacent spaces. So for instance, we'll be talking about Lansdowne, I think, a little later in this call, and you referenced it earlier. That's obviously adjacent to the Queen Elizabeth driveway. Wellington Street is another area that we're very interested in seeing progress made. Of course, that's adjacent to a couple of the NCC parkways. But what the origin of Parkways for People was really the pandemic experience. You'll remember that during the pandemic, the Queen Elizabeth driveway was closed to cars and made open to active transportation and to recreation for the first time, possibly the first time ever, for Queen Elizabeth driveway. And that was for an extended period, all day, 7 days a week. And this was really a sea change. We saw tremendous uptake by people. We saw 5,000 people a day get out there walking or on their bicycle or out in wheelchairs. So it was terrific to see. And it was a real, it was just something completely different than what we'd experienced before. And so for Parkways for People, our real concern was what happens after the pandemic. Do we just revert back to business as usual? I mean, we've had this, we've seen what a better tomorrow could look like, and are we just going to revert back to the way things used to be? So we realized that there's always voices that will advocate against these sort of changes. People, and in all fairness, people say, look, I use this route to commute into work every day, and I don't like to lose that, or it's the most attractive way for me to get into downtown. I don't want to have to take alternative routes that are kind of less attractive. I understand all those concerns. But there's always people that are going to advocate for that. There's often not people advocating on the other side for saying, we like what you've done. We want you to keep doing it. And we want, there's a public voice behind you. So that's essentially what Parkways for People is doing. So, with the NCC, the NCC actually takes a lot of grief from the people of Ottawa. It's important to remember that they're the largest landowner in the region, and so it's hard for various initiatives to come forward without the NCC getting involved in one way or another. And sometimes that will be things that people just don't like. We've got a proposal in the East End for a new road that would go through the Greenbelt on NCC land. Needless to say, the NCC has some very serious reservations about that, but that's something that is upsetting a lot of people in the East End. In the West End, you've got the NCC has taken a parcel of land and made it available to embassies from foreign countries. Again, something that the NCC is being called upon to find a solution for this, these sort of international agreements that we have with other countries. But of course, a number of people are very upset with losing that green space. The NCC, as I say, they take a lot of grief, but I would argue that they've done a tremendous amount of good for the city and for the region. And if you think about Nick, you talked about the network of trails that we have for active transportation in this city. I mean, the truth of the matter is that most of those are NCC. If we didn't have the NCC multi-use pathways as the backbone for the city of Ottawa and the city of Gatineau's transportation networks, I don't think we would have a meaningful active transportation system here in Ottawa. So it's, as I say, we want to be a positive voice that says, NCC, we like what you've done, and we want you to keep moving forward. And just on the issue of parkways, it's really important to remember why these parkways were created and what their intent was. So they were created back in the 1950s, 1960s. And the NCC at the time said, we need to find a way to help the people and the visitors of the region get access to the greenways and the waterways of the national capital area. And so, back in the 1960s, the way that we would interact with the green spaces and the waterways would be with this, with these modern cars, right? That was the way that we did it. Fast forward to the 2020s, and the way that people want to interact with green spaces and waterways is much more hands-on. People want to be in the water, whether it's swimming, whether it's kayaking, canoeing. They want to be engaging with it. And likewise for the green spaces, people don't want to just drive through them and see and sort of see what they can observe at 60 kilometers an hour. They want to be closer to that nature. They want to be a part of it. They want to smell it. So again, we're trying to push the NCC to move as far forward and as quickly as they can in terms of delivering on their original mandate for the NCC parkways.
Yeah, that's so important. And, I know when I bike, it's, you not only do you feel better, but usually you run into people and,
Yeah,
you're able to sort of find different parts of the city that maybe you didn't know about, that you didn't see when you're in your cars. So, you're generally kind of finding out a lot more. And one of the things that you've advocated for is turning one of the parkways adjacent to the Rideau Canal into a permanent active transportation corridor, which would be quite
yeah,
exciting. I'm wondering how that's coming along, and is there one parkway that you kind of focus on over the other, or is sort of either one good
right.
there?
Yeah. So you're right that we have been advocating for this, and we were thrilled to see the member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre, Yasser Naqvi, also called for one of the canal parkways to be reserved for active transportation for a full year on a pilot basis and see how that works out. We support that fully, but actually, our thinking has gone beyond that, and what we are thinking now is that the Rideau Canal as a whole, we should be making a case for the Rideau Canal to be a national urban park. So Parks Canada runs a number of national parks throughout the country, but most of them are a number of hours away from any of the major cities of the country. And so the vast majority of Canadians never get the opportunity to experience a national park. So in response, Parks Canada initiated a program to do what is actually done throughout in parts of the U.S. And elsewhere, to create national urban parks. So the idea is have, what is essentially a national park, but in a much more accessible location. So there's currently one in Toronto, the Rouge National Urban Park, and Parks Canada has said we want to create 15 of these over the next half dozen years. And so 7 of those have been identified and publicly announced. There's probably another 7 or 8 that have not yet been announced. And so the question is, could Ottawa have a national urban park? And if so, could it be a linear park along the Rideau Canal? Now, it's important to say that with a national park, with a national urban park, we can do whatever we want with it, right? It doesn't, it's not that it suddenly becomes a conservancy and it's it's inaccessible to different forms of transportation. There are roads that go through many national parks. In fact, the Trans-Canada Highway goes through Banff National Park, famously. And so it's important what we're thinking is you take the canal, you take the adjacent roads, you take the adjacent federally owned lands, such as Confederation Park, such as the Arboretum down at the other end. There's Patterson Creek Park. You could take all of this land and turn it into a new national urban park. Now, and again, what we would like to see is we'd like to see one side of the parkway dedicated to active use. The other side, we have to be respectful of those that want to maintain some driving options along the canal. So I don't think that we're that as a society we're quite able to go that far that fast. But that's where we are, and that's what we've been pushing with the NCC and letting them know that there is a voice of public support for an initiative like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic to see. Definitely a little bit
Yeah.
more room when you're on your bike and you don't have to sort of swerve through the crowds, especially on the weekends. Yeah, so we know Ottawa's growing. We know we're going to
Yeah.
get another 500,000 in population in the next 20 or 30 years. We know that more towers are coming, maybe not quite as many as some of the developers are hoping, but we know that more towers are coming, more cars are going to be on the road. And so I'm wondering, what's your vision of Ottawa in say 20 years if we're able to be successful in creating more of these active transportation corridors?
Yeah, right. So Nick, that let's start with the city of Ottawa's vision for the next 20 years about what it wants for active transportation and other forms of sustainable transportation. The city of Ottawa, in our official plan, we have said that by within 25 years, more than half of all trips will be done through sustainable modes of travel. So sustainable modes, of course, are cycling, walking, transit, and carpooling. So that is a significant increase from what we have today. And so to achieve that, we're going to have to put in the infrastructure to support that. And so let me just talk about the infrastructure for active transportation. I think it's fair to say that, like, the city of Ottawa has done a pretty decent job. We've been spending about $15 million a year on cycling infrastructure, sometimes more, sometimes less. But you see that with road reconstructions, with sewer rebuilds, active transportation is very often a part of those solutions. So that's been very positive to see. Now, quite frankly, I believe that the city can move much faster. We see this in other cities around the world where they say, we're gonna transform over the course of the next 2 years. We're gonna build a complete network so that people can get safely end to end by bicycle. That's part of the challenge that we have right now, is that we have some really great bike lanes, but they might only last for 1 kilometer. And the question for many people is, what happens after that 1 kilometer? Are you suddenly put back into traffic and have to deal with with cars? And for about 2/3 of the population, that's a deal breaker. They'll say, I'm very interested in cycling and getting around the city by bike, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned for my safety and the safety of my family. And so there's what I would like to see prioritized for active transportation in Ottawa is, number one, local connections. So as with the NCC pathways, we've got like some fairly decent options for getting into downtown Ottawa from the east and the west and the near south. Now, they're maybe not always the most direct or the closest options, but they do exist. What I would like to see prioritized is to start with these local connections, so that, if you're living in, let's say, Orleans, and you want to get to the grocery store that is a couple of kilometers away, there's a safe cycling route for you to do that. Okay, taking advantage of local streets that are pretty quiet anyways, but as soon as you hit a busier street, there is a dedicated and protected bike lane. So that's number one, because as I say, most trips are short and they are amenable to traveling by bicycle. And so let's take advantage of that, and let's really focus there. In the longer term, we do want and need a complete grid of cycling. But let's let people be successful with the small voyages first. And I think there's it's really important that we do this quickly, because I don't know that policymakers fully appreciate the coming tide of e-bike users. I don't know, Nick, whether you've had the chance to jump on an electric bike yet or not, but I encourage everyone to see if they can get their hands on an electric bike and just take it out for a spin. A lot of the bike share programs that you see in other cities, so Montreal, Toronto, Quebec City, Vancouver, just like some examples, in their bike share programs, they all have electric bikes. You can rent them out, very affordable. Try them out for 20 minutes, and you'll be amazed at just how easy it is, and not just easy, but how fun it is. And so I think that we're going to see this dramatic uptake in e-bike usage over the coming years as more people get exposed to them. So we need to be building that network for what's coming. But if I can make one last point, Nick, about the cycling network, and one thing that we haven't talked about yet, and that's, of course, the first response is, yeah, but we're a winter city. What about winter? And the experience of Montreal, obviously they've got this, the same climate that we have, maybe even a little bit worse. But what they've found is that if you meet two conditions, you'd be surprised at the level of winter cycling. So the first condition is that it needs to be protected infrastructure. And so not just paint on the road, but physically separated from the cars, because of course, when there's, when the snow falls, it's hard to know where the lines are. So if there's protected infrastructure, and secondly, if it's maintained, so if it's cleared, people will use cycling infrastructure year round. And I can speak about this personally. I became a winter cyclist over the last couple of years, and quite frankly, the cold is not a problem. You just put on an extra layer, and once you start, moving your legs, you're getting warm naturally pretty quickly, anyways. So the cold is not a problem. The concerns are, number one, am I a suitable distance from the cars? That I know that braking is not as easy in a car when there's in the winter. I know that they can't see the lines as well. So I really want that protected infrastructure, number one. But number two is, has it been maintained? If it's not cleared, then it's very difficult to use. What I found with winter cycling is that there's probably about 5 or 6 days a year, where it's snowing really heavily, where I personally have found cycling impractical. But that's 5 or 6 days a year. That's not, that's not a deal breaker. So if we have protected infrastructure, and if we maintain it, we will see much more winter cycling. And so, just to end this point, in Montreal, the evidence has been that that about 20% of people that use a bike lane during the summer will use it during the winter. Okay, so about 20% of those bike riders will become winter riders if it's protected and if it's maintained. And so that's, this whole argument about we're a winter city, we can't do it, I don't buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're inspiring me to maybe dabble my toes into some winter biking, and yeah, definitely want to try out one of those electric bikes. Seems a bit like cheating sometimes when they zoom past me, but absolutely want to ask you one more quick question on the bike front. We know that Ottawa doesn't have a bike share program. We did at one point. A lot of people are saying, we're a big city. Why don't we have one? I just want to get a little bit of a response from you. Why do you think that Ottawa doesn't? Obviously, a lot of it is the numbers, the economics, but what do you think standing in the way from Ottawa having a really good bike share program?
Yeah, so actually it's not a little bit numbers, it's all numbers. Okay, it's if you think back to the history of bike sharing, there was this hope or this assumption that bike sharing could be done on a profitable basis. The way that we have like electric scooters now, we expect those companies to make a profit off it. What we have realized from bike share programs around the world is that it's virtually impossible to make a profit off bike sharing. That's just the nature of the operation. But it's the same as public transit, right? Like very few public transit networks, if any, can make a profit. It needs to be subsidized, but that's fine. It's a public good. I mean, we subsidize our roads. No one expects our roads to make a profit. No one really expects public transit to make a profit, and we need to be thinking the same way about bike share. And my own experience with bike share, I'm a big fan of it now. When it first came out, I was like, what's the point of this? I've got my own bike. Why do I need one? Then I went to, one weekend I went to Toronto with my daughter, and we said, it was a last minute, spur of the moment decision to go. And we said, what are we going to do? And we looked out and we said, hey, what about these bike shares? Why don't we try those? So we rented bike share for the weekend, and it was fabulous. We saw all sorts of parts of the city that we wouldn't otherwise see. We just had a blast. So what I found with bike share, number one, it's great for tourism. Then I went to Montreal again with a bike share system, but with my own bike. And what I realized is that bike share makes up a significant number of the bikes on the street. So it improves safety, like safety in numbers. And so I'm really great, even though I'm not using it, I'm really grateful for the bike share in Montreal, just because it makes me safer as a cyclist. Number three, I tried out the Vancouver bike share system. And that's where, I got exposure to e-bikes, and since have gone on to, buy one and love it. And it's without a doubt my favorite bike. And Nick, it is not cheating. It is just do it for the pure pleasure of it. And you know what it is about e-bikes that I should mention? I sort of think about when I ride my regular bike, how far am I comfortable going? And, after a lot of thinking about this, I realized that I would comfortably cycle about 3 kilometers to do an errand, or to go into work or whatever it is. 3 kilometers, and I don't have to think about it. Anything more than 3 kilometers, I'm like scratching my head, right? Saying, do I really want to, do I really need to do this? I'm looking for an excuse why I can take the car. Oh, there's that big hill there, or it's really windy today. An e-bike takes all of that away. An e-bike, I found my range is more like 15 to 20 kilometers that I would go without thinking twice about it. And we've got my e-bike is a cargo bike, so I'll go to Costco and do my shopping by e-bike. I love it. It's one of the favorite things that I do. So just a final point about bike share that I think is worth mentioning is I experienced this in Washington. Washington, I'd been there on work and staying out at a hotel that is maybe a kilometer away from the public transit that I need to take to get into the city. And so for me, bike share was that last kilometer that got me from the hotel to public transit. And apparently that's quite common in cities like Washington, where there's a great public transit system, and people just need to figure out that last kilometer. So it's think of bike share as a way to make our investments in public transit more effective. So yeah, I'm a big fan of bike share, but as I say, the key point is that it's going to require support from some levels of government. It's not a profit-making business, but it's a public good, so it doesn't need to be, and it shouldn't be. And so I know that City Council in Ottawa will be looking at this again probably next year. And I think that the sophistication of the dialogue has moved on from where it was 3 or 4 years ago. So that's I'm hopeful that we're going to see it come back to Ottawa in the not too distant future.
Yeah, absolutely. Then I could keep up with you on your e-bike. Oh, that's great. Absolutely agree with you there. And, I tried out one of those electric scooters recently to do that last kilometer when I went to Jazz Fest. So, yeah, absolutely agree with you. So let's talk a little bit about your latest endeavor, City Shapes. Now, that aims to help cities and communities to deliver solutions in climate, housing, transportation, and governance. Certainly some hot topics. It was founded by former Ottawa City Councillor Catherine Mckenney, and you have come on board as Deputy Director. So tell us a little bit about that initiative and your role.
Yeah, okay. So City Shapes is all about building better cities. And so what we've realized, and this is a lot from Catherine's experience as a councillor, and before that, is that first of all, the demands placed on cities is enormous, and the challenges that we face as a country almost all require cities to do their part to achieve the outcomes we want. If you look at the example of climate and emissions, 2/3 of emissions come from cities. So if cities don't have plans to get to net zero and fund those plans, then as a country, we're just not going to hit our targets. So City Shapes is all about helping cities achieve those objectives, whether it's in climate, whether it's in housing, whether it's in active transportation, whether it's in something like placemaking. And actually the final area that we look at too is around budgeting and city finances, because going back to our earlier discussion, this is a very under scrutinized area, and it really needs a lot more attention and a lot more assistance, and so that's what we're trying to do. So the way City Shapes operates is we're achieving these objectives in two ways. The first is through thought leadership. So we've got a Substack newsletter called Fix Your City, and what we do is we outline very straightforward, common sense solutions to a lot of the challenges facing Canada and our cities. So you take something like housing, and so many of us will say, "Wow, housing, like it's so complex, and where do we start, and what are the solutions, and I'm hearing so many different opinions, and we just give up. It's just it's just too much to figure out, so let's not worry about it. What we're trying to do with Fix Your City is say, look, here, when we talk about housing, here are a dozen common sense solutions that all cities need to be moving on. So, so it's to help both policymakers as well as ordinary citizens get a much better sense of, what we should be prioritizing to make things work. The second way that we help cities is through direct support. And one area where we're seeing a lot of interest is around this question of budgeting. So cities cities do budgets a certain way. In fact, all levels of government do. And my experience from being involved in budgeting over many years is that the degree of transparency sort of collapses every year. There's always a reason not to reveal a certain level of information, and then that gets codified and solidified and repeated in future years. And so budgets, unfortunately, at all levels of government have become much harder for citizens to understand and to read and to engage with. And there's actually like three real problems with that. Number one is, if citizens can't understand their budget of the city, they're just going to disengage from civic affairs generally, and that's a real problem. We need more people getting involved in local issues. So that's number one, and it starts with being clear about how we're spending their taxpayer money. Number two is, if we don't tell people how we're spending our money now, no one believes us that we actually have a budget constraint. Okay, they'll say there's a new priority that comes up. We say, okay, look, we just simply don't have the money to finance this. We're going to have to find some other solution to finance it. And for cities, the only tool they really have right now is property taxes, so increase in property taxes. And of course, everyone reacts negatively to the prospect of an increased property tax if it's just presented in the abstract. But we need transparent budgets that people can understand, to see that if we want to move into new areas, we're going to have to do it with new resources, or some level of new resources. And so transparent budgets allow you to have a much more honest and productive discussion about the revenue side. And the third reason is, we need more transparent budgets so that higher levels of government understand the situation much more clearly, and make the appropriate transfers to cities. So what we've seen in recent years is, especially during the pandemic, cities came under a lot of pressure for things like public transit, where the numbers went down and the revenue went down. And so the federal and the provincial levels both stepped up and said, okay, we'll provide some temporary funding to alleviate that. But as we came out of the pandemic, those revenue shortfalls continued at the municipal level, but the higher levels of government were much more reluctant to help out. And they would say, oh, we can't really see what's in your budget, and we don't really understand this thing you've got called reserves, and it looks like you've got a huge amount of reserves, which we just assume is a big pot of money that's sitting in the bank. So if you're not going to be transparent with us, we're just going to starve you. We're going to force you to use down those reserves until you just can't go any further. And so when the cities come to the provincial governments and the federal governments and say, we need a new deal on financing, we need a new fiscal federalism, they can actually talk about it from a position of analytical strength, to say, look, we're being called on to do all these things. Here's how we're spending our money, and you can see exactly where we're at. We just can't manage with the current financing arrangements are in place. So that's going to be a big topic to come up. It's something that City Shapes will be a part of, it's an area where we're really pleased to be able to help cities.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I know here at Synapsity, we were excited to see city shapes get born, and sort of see people focusing on the community level, and like we
Right.
said earlier, a lot of changes happening there. So we'll stay tuned, and we'll put a couple of links into the show notes too, so people can check out the project and support any way they can. So I had to leave the most controversial subject to the end, and we want to talk about Lansdowne 2.0. And you've been a big proponent of a better Lansdowne, as has Synapsity. And I'm just wondering, just quickly, what some quick points is, what do you think is wrong with
Yeah.
OSEG's Lansdowne 2.0 proposal?
Right. Okay. So Nick, look, as an economist, I say let's look at the finances, and do the finances make sense? And once we have a financial model that makes sense, then we can talk about the site design. My challenge is I can't get past the finances. I can't even start to talk about the site design, because when I look at the financial model, I just got way too many questions and things just don't add up. Until we have that clarity, I just don't really see how we can reasonably move forward. Now, you might be aware that recently a number of prominent Ottawa residents sent a letter into the mayor, asking for more transparency on some of these financial issues. So we had Kevin Page, the former parliamentary budget officer. We had Michael Wernick, the former clerk of the Privy Council. We had Joanne Cianello, formerly of the Citizen. We had Penny Collinette, a political insider and organizer who's had a long history in the city. And finally, we had Paul Champ, lawyer who has been at the forefront of the class action work with regards to the downtown occupation. So these five prominent individuals came forward and said, with I think it was 16, 18 questions, saying, here are some basic questions about the Lansdowne financials that are not being answered, that we need to know to be able to understand whether this makes any sense. We know that the partnership has been unprofitable for the last 10 years, has never turned it's lost money every single year. What are we doing differently, or what are we proposing to do differently to reverse that? Or will we have losses going forward? We don't even know how much this proposal is going to cost anymore. A year ago, it was costed at $332 million. We know now that it's going to cost much more than that. We don't know how much. I think the city knows, but they're not telling us. And so we just need transparency about that. Without that transparency, what this looks like is corporate welfare. Okay, we've got the private partners of OSEG, the OSEG partnership, who are largely property developers, are having to cover those losses on a year-by-year basis, and naturally are not happy about that. So what they've said is, they said basically we need to tear down that north side stands. We need to build a new event center where the Ottawa 67s can also play hockey, but of course that can be a music and another event center too. We need to rebuild the north stands so that we can put in a podium that will have retail, but will allow us for the construction of three towers, three residential towers. Now the question is, the question is, 10 years ago, when Lansdowne 1.0 was being proposed, tearing down those north stands and creating a new event center was never part of the plan. It was never deemed as necessary. And so 10 years ago, we left that center as it is, but we actually renovated it, okay? The north stands and the civic center down below, we renovated that to the cost of somewhere between $50 to $100 million. And now a decade later, we're saying we're going to just tear that down. So, these numbers just do not add up. And we need to see what the financial projections are going forward. Because if not, this just looks like corporate welfare. It looks like, potentially $500 million in corporate welfare to billionaire sports team owners. And I don't think that's the way that the people of Ottawa want to spend their tax dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. It just doesn't make sense. More towers and, losing more green space when we already lost that 10 years ago. Now, community groups in the Glebe, Old Ottawa South, and Old Ottawa East have played a large role in objecting to the proposal. And our colleague Catherine Mckenney has done some great work in efforts to reimagine just what a better Lansdowne could look like. So, how do you feel these community groups have helped in the fight against the project?
Yeah. So it's important to say that community groups have stood up and said we don't like what we're seeing with Lansdowne. And back in early 2023, about 6 community groups got together and sent a letter into Mark Sutcliffe to say we as a community were promised public consultation, and we are promised meaningful public consultation. Here's what we think meaningful public consultation looks like. So it was a list of what the requirements of meaningful consultation are, starting with, can we just have a timeline about when decisions are even being made? You think that would be pretty basic, and that would be that would be provided at the outset, but that's never been provided. So it's always, is a decision going to be made in the next couple of weeks, and catch everyone off guard. And I'd like to just clarify that while the local community associations put up their hand and said we need meaningful public consultation, so did a lot of others. Okay, we had groups like Synapsity, like Parkways for People, that are not focused just on that part of the city. They're citywide in nature. We had the Federation of Citizens Associations of Ottawa, which again by definition is citywide, come in and say we need greater public consultation. So I think it's a very fair statement. It's disheartening that what will probably be the most important decision made by this council, to spend somewhere in the range of $400 to $500 million on new sports facilities, is being done without any meaningful public consultation. So it's great that the community associations were able to come forward and create a lot more scrutiny over this. And it's the work of the community associations that then got these eminent observers like Kevin Page to come forward and say we want fiscal transparency. And I think what we've seen here is a real movement, a real grassroots movement by the people of Ottawa to say, hey, we want to be involved too. So I'm quite hopeful that we will see we'll see a revised public engagement process that gives people the opportunity to make meaningful contributions.
Yeah, absolutely. So important, right? And, like you said, probably the biggest decision that they'll make. And, just as a final word on Lansdowne, for those who work, live, play in the area, how would you recommend them getting involved in this? Just what can the average citizen do so that to make sure we get a better Lansdowne?
Well, look, there's the official process, of course, which is engaging with your city councillor. The city of Ottawa has a web page where you can provide comments. You can write into the City of Ottawa team, the staff that are doing this project. So that's the official process. Of course, you can write to the mayor. We're aware of a number of people that wrote to the mayor following that letter from Kevin Page and company, to say we're concerned. People writing individually to the mayor saying we're concerned with what's going on. And we want proper due diligence done here. That's something that the mayor has responded to. We've seen a number of responses, so it's something that is clearly being taken very seriously. There's also have been a number of recent efforts by the community. Again, it's done on a sort of grassroots basis, so it's not it's not necessarily done with a lot of future planning in mind, but a number of events by the local community to raise awareness of what's going on, and to educate people. So, for instance, at Lansdowne, on many of the Saturdays of the summer, there's the 613 flea event that takes place. A great event, it takes place right on that main square of Lansdowne. If you have the opportunity to go out and see it, I highly recommend it. It's just such a fun and a great event to see local vendors with their wares. Anyways, at the 613 Fleet, the Glebe Community Association was able to show a 3D model of what the Lansdowne project is going to look like, because this is something that the community had been asking the city to provide a 3D model so that we can properly understand what it's going to look like, just what is the scale of these towers relative to the rest of the site. The city actually refused to do that, and so it was up to community members and volunteers to produce this 3D model on their own. And luckily, there was a retired architect that stepped up and said, you know, I've got a lot of experience in building scale models, so I'd be happy to do that. That was, just another example of how the communities come forward. I expect to see a number of grassroots-led initiatives over the next weeks and months to come. Those haven't been defined yet, but keep an eye out on social media and the regular media, and hopefully there'll be more details about that people will see over the coming days.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep people posted on our Synapsity channels. Such an important decision. We know that Sean Menard's working quite hard, and he's got the Better Lansdowne 2.0. We'll put a link to that in the show notes so people can check that out. Well, Neil, thanks so much for coming on our podcast. Lots going on and lots to keep you busy. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our Synapsity audience?
You know what, Nick? It's just simply... first of all, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. Really enjoyed the discussion. And I just want to say a word of, a shout out to Synapsity itself. It's such an important role that Synapsity is playing in terms of building the community of changemakers within Ottawa, helping people get involved in their local affairs. It's so important. When we think about the 3 levels of government, 9 out of the 10 issues that will affect me or you are local. They're municipal by nature. Whether it's the pothole on the road outside my street, whatever it is. But there's so much more attention paid to federal politics and provincial politics. But municipal is super, super important. And it's the things that are going to impact you as a citizen the most. So, I think Synapsity is doing, more than anyone to get the people of Ottawa engaged and providing opportunities. As part of your workshop that you put on early in 2023, looking at different techniques and strategies and trying to link different initiatives that are going on in the city with one another. Those are the sort of events we need more of, because it's really hard for individuals to just say, okay, I'm really concerned about this issue. I don't know how to express myself or how to get involved with others to be effective. Organizing is not easy. It's not straightforward. Many times it's going to fail. You're going to put out an invitation and virtually no one shows up. That happens to everyone. But Synapsity is doing more than anyone to say, here are some of the best practices. Here are some of the ways you can get involved. So again, thank you for what you do.
Well, thanks so much, Neil. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Looking forward to continue to work with you as we imagine just what Ottawa can be in the months and years to come. Thanks again for coming on Community Connections, Neil.
Hey, my pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching Community Connections, brought to you by Synapsity. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Until next time, stay connected.